Welcome to PLUSone, the series where each month I look at the free games on PlayStation Plus and tell you if they're worth the download. After all, the games may be free, but your time is valuable. Today we're taking a look at Absolver, a 2017 fighting game RPG hybrid published by Devolver Digital. Featuring smooth, martial arts-inspired combat, a mysterious destroyed civilization, and a seamless shared-world multiplayer experience, Absolver bites off quite a bit in terms of features, especially for a small indie studio. Does it hold up to its own lofty goals and become the fighting game to usher in a new generation of unique fighters? More importantly, is it worth the almost 14 GB on your hard drive and the 5+ hours it lasts? Let's find out. Absolver approaches combat in one of the most unique ways I think I've ever seen. Rather than playing as set characters like you'd expect out of a Street Fighter or a Tekken game, you create your own fighter just as you would in any RPG. At any point, you have 4 different fighting styles at your disposal, and you can swap between them on the fly by holding R2 and moving the right stick in the corresponding direction on this little diamond indicator. The core combat is simple: a light square attack, a heavy triangle attack, a dodge with the circle button, blocking with the L2 button, and a few different special abilities like parrying or absorbing hits using the right analog stick. Where Absolver stands out from the crowd, and arguably shines, is in its fluidity. Every triangle attack will change you into another one of your 4 stances, allowing you to follow up and chain together complex combos. These stance shifts are seamless, as if it were its own true-to-life martial art. The game is beautiful in that regard, and boy is this combat satisfying. Over time, you can adjust your combos to add in new moves by changing out cards in your combat deck. Even learning new moves is a unique process in this game though. You learn by blocking enemy attacks how to execute those very attacks, provided you win the ensuing battle of course. Rather than just giving you new moves as you level up by brute forcing your way through the combat, it forces you to step back and learn how to play defense just as equally as you play offense. All of this combat is wrapped up in a very hands-off narrative. You won't be guided through a linear world here. Instead, the story structure and even much of the level design, as much as I hate to use this comparison, is very clearly inspired by the Souls series. There are pseudo-bonfire checkpoint altars you activate. When you die, you're brought back to a checkpoint and all of the enemies respawn, and when you get to a certain point in most areas, you can open a shortcut to skip all the traveling you just did for when you inevitably die again. Moreover, every time you attack or block, you're eating up a stamina meter, so you have to manage that, your health, and your foes all at once. Now, Absolver is much easier than a Souls game. Don't let that part scare you away. Checkpoints are plentiful, and in my experience, it felt like most of them were automatic rather than the manual bonfires you have to activate yourself. The enemies start off mostly as pushovers, but will over time block more, read your attacks more, and creep up in difficulty. Well, that is, unless you go to a late game area early on like I did. Yeah, Absolver has practically no barriers once you finish the tutorial level. You're told you have to take down a number of stronger boss enemies spread across the world in order to prove your worth as a fighter, and just thrown to the wolves after that. I think I accidentally went into what should be level 4 or 5. It was tough, but it was certainly doable, and it made me feel like a total badass coming back down to an earlier level and demolishing everything in my sight. This, however, is one of the game's major flaws. It steers so hard towards minimalism that Absolver's quality of life suffers. The minimap will only appear when you save at a checkpoint altar. The world isn't massive by any stretch, but there's no basic indicator of where you're going once you're in a level. And there are a good number of paths that branch off into either a loot drop, a few basic enemies, or sometimes just nothing at all. Usually after a bit of wandering, you'll stumble into where you're supposed to go, but it never feels like it's earned for me. After a fight, I feel satisfied. I feel like I've grown as a fighter and a character, but getting to that fight does nothing for me half the time. Something simple like a mini-map item or option, or just a stronger hint system for players who want just a tad bit more of a direction could have gone a long way. Alright, let's touch on that shared world I mentioned at the top of the video. You won't be the only one trying to become an Absolver on your quest. Any player from across the world can pop into the same server you're on and go about their own journey. You can partner up with friends or total strangers to take enemies down together. You can be that jerk who runs around beating everybody up, or you can just say hi and walk away. Every time you enter a new sub-area, you'll be notified of the players in that region with you. Also, every time you enter a new sub-area when playing online, your frame rate will most likely tank. When I was playing offline, I didn't run into this issue. It was only when the game populated the other 2 to 4 people in my world that the game got extremely jittery. After that momentary dip though, for the most part you'll be running flawlessly. I did have a couple times where I lagged forward or backward a few steps, and there was one specific boss encounter that just sort of disappeared mid-cutscene, I think? So be warned, you might get some jank if you do play online. There are also 2 dedicated multiplayer modes, one 1v1 duel and a 3v3 zone capture mode, both of which were surprisingly fun and almost perfectly stable for me. So with all that said, do I recommend Absolver? If you're okay with a non-linear adventure that might have you scratching your head decently often, I would say +1 it to your collection. The unique combat and beautiful visuals more than make up for the somewhat lackluster narrative direction. If you're not a very patient person though, I would give it a pass right now, because it'll probably just frustrate you and turn you away very quickly. For those of you that do download it, it's worth noting that just yesterday, the development team at Sloclap announced a big update, including a new fighting style, a huge PvE dungeon, and a whole lot of new content. Now, it doesn't sound like the update will address the issues I currently have with the game, but it's worth keeping your eye on moving forward before its September release. Also, for you trophy hunters out there, I would not recommend you go for the platinum on this one, as you've got a hefty amount of online trophies to fight through, and we all know just how fun it can be to grind online trophies. I would enjoy the game for what it is, because right now, I don't think we'll see anything else like Absolver anytime soon. With all that said, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think of Absolver down in the comments below. While you're down there, make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with all of my newest videos.